We're on a panfish hunt. Suspended fish right underneath us.
Parts of me likes the actual hunt just as much as the catch. There they are. Got them.
We're on a midwinter panfish hunt. I'm with my buddy here, Phil Laube, also known as Panfish Phil. The interesting thing is, on any good, really good panfish lake, not all the fish are always doing the same thing at the same time. The real key is really good habitat. Phil's been out here recently, and where are the fish? A lot of people say a lot of fish are in the deep basins, looking for crappies. Well, that isn't really the case. In many lakes, the fish are in varied habitats, dependent on where the food is at, I guess.
Yeah, and this is not by no means a secret lake. This lake, when I first came out here, I was checking out. We started out shallow. We looked at the cabbage, and we found some fish, but there wasn't a big population of fish. There's some bluegills up there and some nice ones, but we went and did a little bit of scouting, and we saw a little hole, 28-foot hole, and there's some basin fish out there as we started to look around, and it was a mix of both crappies and bluegills. They're a little bit different in the way they set up. The bluegills were tighter to the bottom, and the crappies are a little bit suspended, but we decided to expand on that. Instead of just looking at only a basin bite, we went back shallow to see if we could find some more fish, and again we found crappies and we found bluegills mixed up shallow. So then we saw a little bit of cabbage, some isolated weed beds, and that's kind of what we're going to search today. We're going to expand on what we already know, and we got kind of a dual bite going. So these diverse lakes that have both types of bites going at the same time tend to be really, really good panfish lakes.
You can see what we got here. We got a big flat, a lot of big shallow weed flats throughout the summer. A lot of times these bluegills and panfish are associated to these big weed beds, but throughout the winter, a lot of times they dump off into deep basins areas, and you can see what this is. This is like a ditch. Phil, give us a little bit of rundown on where you've been seeing them out here as of recently.
Okay, as Jimmy said, they do dump out, and one of the dumping spots is right on the edge where the hard break dumps into the basin. There usually turns into mud, and you can see on this point, we found that the gills tend to ride closer to the first break edge.
Yeah.
And so the gills are kind of hanging tighter to the points to this break edge on this side, 22, 24 feet, and they hug the bottom really tight. The suspenders, the ones that you see off the bottom, which roam more the main basin part of it, they'll be off the bottom 6-7 feet, and there's bigger schools, and they roam around in circles.
But those are the crappies.
Those are crappies.
Crappies. It's the one thing that the use of your electronics and really ID which fish you're fishing for. As you were saying, the gills generally have the tendency to hang tight, where a lot of times the crappies will Christmas tree up on your depth finder.
Exactly, Jimmy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one key. So, I mean, when you are presenting lures to these fish, and these fish are pressured fish, so, I mean, they're really fussy. So, I mean, knowing that the difference between what you're looking at, if they're low on the bottom, you can, go a little more micro, do something a little bit smaller, because, go to a spring bobber, because the bites are really light. And this deep of water, it's really tough to detect really feather-like bites. So, and then the crappies, they can be a little more aggressive. They pound it a little bit more. So you can use bigger baits, you can use some plastics. So we'll experiment today, see what they want, but that's kind of the general location you're looking for midwinter.
Yeah, but right now what we're going to do is we're going to put down a 360 and sort of scout around. As you were saying, one thing that the crappies in these basins, that the fish are sort of moving around constantly, and so what we're going to do is put 360 down, take a little bit of scan around and see if we can see some schools of fish. We got the suspended fish right underneath us right here. But you can see what this is. Each ring is about 15 feet. So we're actually between, the surface is the boat, the bottom is 28 foot of water, and you can see there's schools of crappies anywhere from right on the bottom to suspended, 8 or 10 feet off the bottom. And then you can see fish actually off on the soft bottom out here. You can see these crappies out in the mud out in here. And these schools are constantly moving around, but electronics like this, you can see there's more fish out here too. These white grains of rice, those are fish. As you see it sweeping around, you'll see those fish actually changing position because the fish are moving. One thing for this deep water fishing like this, when these fish are off in these soft bottom basin areas, this unit here is just amazing to find them because these fish are sort of roving around out here. You know, he came out here a couple of days ago and he found them here, but the fish have actually since moved from that time, obviously. They're constantly roving. And you can even see right here, these fish are changing their position right here. We have a number suspended probably, I don't know, but between 3 and 5 feet off the bottom. Those are probably crappies, like what you're saying, that the individual fish act differently. Bluegills have the tendency to be really pinned down tight to the bottom, where the crappies will suspend up a little bit. It's gonna be nice and toasty in this unit here, I can guarantee you that. Come here, buddy. Come on. Oh, and we're good.
And we just left Jimmy out in the deep stuff, and we decided to move up shallow to chase these shallow crappies and bluegills. And what we're on is a little bit of a shallow basin. If you think about the deep basins, they're 28 feet. Everyone thinks about a deep basin, but there's actually these shallow basins that are 12 to 15 feet. So in this surrounding area, it's 12 to 15 feet in the middle, and on the surrounding edges, we've got some weeds. They're a little bit, we don't have cabbage here so much, which bluegills really and crappies love cabbage, but in this particular area, it's more of a kind of like a milfoil clumps or sandgrass type clumps. And what we're gonna do is just try and jump around. I don't have the 360 electronics, so we're gonna go a little bit more old school, which I like to do. It's a lot of fun. Is just grab the camera. We're gonna drill holes and look with the camera and see what we can find. And if we find them, we're gonna just start fishing them. So we're gonna move around on this flat a little bit and do a little search and destroy. All right, for these crappies, I'm gonna start with some plastic, but they can be pretty fussy. So we're gonna test the mood of these fish. One of my favorites here is just a Jamie XL. That fluorescent yellow, I really like that color. The jig head color, I don't seem to, or it doesn't seem to have as big of a, make as big a difference, but I like that high vis yellow. And then if that don't work, we're gonna go down, probably my #1 go-to lure for these crappies, I guess, when they become fussy. You need a spring bobber. The bites get really light, they're very hair bites, but a really small tungsten jig, gold with a red, tipped with a red Euro. I don't know, I get a lot of, I have a lot of confidence in it. Maybe that's probably the bigger part of why I pick it, but it does work. It works, seems to be work everywhere I go. So I'm gonna go to that second though. I'm gonna see how aggressive they are first and do a little jumping around here. So I might have to drill a few more holes. We'll see if they're in the hole we just dropped, but if they aren't, I'm gonna drill in this area. I'm gonna drill it up and start doing some hole hopping.
Ooh, got him. Spring bob pays off. That's a better one too. Ooh, better one. Yeah, come here, buddy. Ooh, could be a big Gilbert. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Even the gills are out suspended out in deeper water. That's where some of these fish that are really super finicky, maybe not crappies, but bluegills. This is about as finicky as you'd get. I got a St. Croix ice rod, but it's got that spring bobber, and the spring bobber is like when you're talking really super sensitive or really finicky fish, in the fact that you can identify very sensitive strikes. A lot of times all you're seeing that just tip down the slightest bit or even up bites when the fish actually come up and they hit it, and the spring bob actually raises up slightly. See that? That's exactly what I'm talking about. See, they're so finicky like that, and then you just lift up and that spring bob is just so sensitive. That's a real key. It's just a peanut, but it's a good illustration of how that spring bobber works. It's just, you know what I mean? There's just no way that actually the fish are so sensitive that they feel any type of a tension from you, from your rod, and the fish will not inhale the bait, you know? You can see how delicate that is, how just the slightest tip or even up, you're getting strike detection going either way. A lot of times what you're doing, I'm lifting up and then all of a sudden you'll see it load up a little bit, and that's the fish is on. Oops, see? That little tip down, I mean, that's where it is. That's extraordinarily sensitive presentation. It's just a little peanut. Just a little, sorry about that, buddy.
There they are. Nice. Just found them. Well, I tell you, they're part of this hunt is pretty exciting. I mean, the catching is a lot of fun, but I tell you what, parts of me likes the adventure, likes the actual hunt just as much as the catch. Feels decent. A decent one. All right. Well, we kind of locate them. We narrowed down where they're living. Got another looker coming. He's a big blip. Look at the size of that blip. Got him. Geez, that took a little bit of action. We had to keep that lure moving all the time. This one's a real fighter. I wonder how Jimmy's doing out deep, because they are starting to pick up shallow, that's for sure.
Oh, there, I got him finally. Oh, it's a good one too. Oh, that was sort of cool. Boy, he was a tough one. That's got to be a Gilbert. Yep, that's what it is. Big, great big gill. Nope. Oh, look at that. Nice one too. Ooh, look at that guy there. Look at that. Nice bluegill. Boy, is that fish finicky. I'm not kidding you. Nice fish though. Beautiful bluegill. Bluegie. Wow. Sort of, you have to force feed them. Pretty fish though. No question about it. Look at him. We'll get her back into the drink. Come here, buddy. The interesting thing is I'm actually out in the deeper basin. I'm probably fishing out for a lot more fish, but the problem is the fish are, as we've seen, the school is roving around in this ditch, and you got to sort of intermittently pass shoot them, per se, where Phil's fishing up along an edge, along a weed edge, and a sort of a drop-off or flat adjacent to a drop-off. And it's a lot more of a distinct area. It's a little bit easier to, you're probably fishing less fish, but they're in more of a defined area. Here the fish are roving all over. But even up on those shallow flats to a degree, they're roving, but at least they're holding along something.
Well, these fish seem to have moved. They weren't real big, but I'm gonna look around. I'm gonna cut a few more holes, 10, 15 feet around this little area and see if I can relocate them. I like to use this big camera when I'm jumping around, but when I find the fish and I kind of want to get a little more detailed on what's going on around me, I will jump to the little micro. There they are. All right, that's good. We only jumped about 20 feet, but here they are. I'm gonna go grab my rod quick. Got him. Woohoo! He was like one of the good ones. I got him on the spring. He popped a little tiny tungsten. He feels pretty good. Oh yeah, another nice one. All right. We finally landed on him. We put on our work today. When it comes to chasing crappies, a lot of times sitting in one hole does not work. In fact, more times than not. So you have to put your time in and put a little bit of energy into catching these, but you got to move a lot. And that's where that camera came into play. As we jumped around, we kept checking the camera and seeing if the fish were around, but we changed rods up. We went back to a spring bobber, but on this one, as I was talking a little bit earlier, we have a really small tungsten on it with one of just a red Euro. Now what I do like, this has got an inline reel. So this just happens to be a clam reel. What I like about it is that when, instead of the circular winding of these types of reels, we get a little bit of kink in these at times, but with these, with light lures, the line stays straight. You don't ever get any twisting in the line, so it's one pro to using an inline reel, especially when you're using light lures like this. Well, the conditions changed a little bit here. It's getting a little later in the day and the sun just popped out. We had cloudy conditions earlier, and I noticed that the crappies are starting to disperse a little bit. We're not getting the action we were earlier. So we're gonna wrap her up and we're gonna go out deep and we're gonna check in on Jimmy and see if we can land some of the more of the deeper basin fish for this evening. So
You got him.
finally. Oh, he feels like one of those good ones.
Yeah.
Got the big old head shakes, Jim. I think it's one of those.
Yeah.
He might be one of those big bruiser crappies that we've been looking for. I think he is too. Oh yeah.
Nice crop. That's a goodie.
There. Real fat and healthy they are.
I'm moving over by
Yeah.
you.
Here, let's drill
I
another
like your
hole. Well, we went very finesse again. Just like we were shallow, I came back out here and we got the spring bobber going. Same tungsten jig with the one red Euro. I'm gonna rebait and get back on them.
Ooh.
We got bigger?
No, it's a nice one. No, a goodie. A goodie is any crappie is a goodie for me. I'll take them. I'm sort of easy.
Frying pan.
What?
Frying pan.
Yeah, he's a good eater. Yeah.
This one feels like the right size.
There you go. You got
Yeah.
a stud on there.
I think so.
That could be a.
This might be our big whopper of the day.
It is.
Man, he was down there. He took a couple looks at it, and then he finally just rocketed it up like.
There you go. Now you're talking.
There we go.
Bubba, that's what I call a big crappie. And
Yeah, what do you
good
think of
job, man. That's unbelievable. Wow, that's a horse. What about crappies? Deep or shallow? Catch them both.
I know.
That's the key.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we had bites both deep and shallow. We had quality both deep and
Deep
shallow.
yeah. That's a fabulous fish. Better get her back. Boy, that's a beauty.